Hello and welcome to a new weekly video. So today is probably the hardest video I've ever had to film so far. I'm sure it won't be the last and it won't be the hardest, but so far it's been a difficult one. It took me a lot of preparation. I had to write down a lot of notes and I figured there was no way I could do everything I wanted in one video, so it's gonna be a video that's in several parts. And this is part one of the band series, episode 1, band series episode 1, which will be all about why I decided to get a band and what happened during my operation and like in the month after that basically. And then I will do after that a video more based around what my life has been with the band and like the hurdles I've met and how I've overcome them or not, and what I plan to do in the future regarding my band, and a whole lot to know the after the band. So this is before and during and a little bit after the band, and then I will do another video later on with the rest of the story. So I hope you enjoy it. I know it's not for everyone, but I thought it could help some people who either are going through this or are thinking of going through this, and I'm keeping it real. I'm not going to hide the truth to you. I don't want to gloss over things. This is just my experience. I want to stress the fact that this is my experience in the country I did this. At the time I did this, which was in 2010, so that's 6 years ago. Things have changed a lot and I cannot stress this enough. This was my story. It's not because this is how it went for me, it would go the same for you. For any kind of medical intervention, please do your research about where you go to and which surgeon you go to, etc. This is extremely important because, I mean, the consequences could be disastrous otherwise. So do your research, but if you're not interested in the band and usually watch my videos and this is not a subject that you like, feel free to not even watch this video. I understand it's a very specific topic. Anyway, this is the story. Why did I decide to get a gastric band? It's very simple and complicated at the same time. I'm going to try and make this video not, well, I can't make it short, I really can't, but I'm going to try to make it straight to the point as I can. So why did I come to this decision? I have been on diets from when I was about 6, 7, something like that. And I'm a professional yo-yo dieter, and this is probably the reason why after losing weight I kept putting weight back on and so on and so forth, and eventually I ended up being 160 kilos. It's a weight I never ever thought I could actually reach ever in my life. How I got there, to be honest, by acting blind about how my weight was escalating, and at every diet I kept losing weight and putting it more. So if you imagine, it gradually like went down but up a little bit higher, and then it's just escalated from there. The worst diets like that were the diets where I lost a lot of weight quickly, like the high protein diet, like Atkins type diets and stuff like that. I don't have anything against them in general, but I don't think they are suited for me. They have caused me some health issues and I would not go back to those again. So it came to it, I think the whole thing started, whenever I really started to think about it, was probably in the beginning of 2009. This is when I was officially told that I had polycystic ovary syndrome, and it was very unlikely I would be able to have children without the help of fertility treatment. And I was told that my weight was partly to blame for this, and if I lost weight it would help things. I was given different kinds of treatments and all that to try and help with it. Nothing really worked. So after that, basically my GP just said to me, listen, you need to lose weight, otherwise you can't even get fertility treatment. And I did more and more blood tests, and as it was, they told me there is absolutely no chance you could right now get pregnant without treatment. So this was a massive hit for me. I've never pictured myself without children, and it's the only thing I've always been certain in my life is that I wanted children. So that's been the thing that really hit me so hard, and I felt completely hopeless. So for a year I tried dieting, I tried loads of different things. Nothing was really working properly, and I started to then research. I didn't go for the band straight away. I decided to research bariatric surgery, which is obesity surgery. So the main 3 operations I looked into were the gastric bypass, the gastric sleeve, and the gastric band. And the reason why I went with the gastric band in the end was because I was absolutely terrified of altering the way my body works. Like, for example, cutting a part of an organ, or the bypass was a complete no-no for me because I was terrified of the impact of my digestion later on, and I'm glad I didn't go for that. I have to say, if I had been able to put that fear aside, I do believe that a gastric sleeve would have been the most efficient operation for me, but I'm still happy that I went with the band. So in Northern Ireland, at the time there was some kind of program where people with a high BMI, they were doing like a testing thing where you could apply to get the NHS to cover for the cost of a band. And I was rejected on the basis that I was not big enough. I am 164 centimeters tall, so my BMI was very, very high, but it was not enough to qualify for this. So I'm not gonna lie, I did contemplate putting on even more weight to be able to qualify for it, and then I found out that the trial they were running had ended and they were not going to renew it. And for me that was devastating because I felt like my only chance was gone. So luckily I was able to have some financial help from my parents, who helped me to pay for a private operation, which was the only option available at that time in Northern Ireland. When I contacted different companies and started to look into them, looked at people who had the surgery with them, contacted them, speaking with them, looking into the background of the surgeon they were working with, I did a lot of research and decided to settle on a clinic who had aftercare in Belfast, which was where I was living at the time, and was doing the surgery either in England or in Belgium. Because I knew that I would have to take the plane whichever way I went, I decided to go for Belgium for different reasons. The first one, taxes in Belgium are a lot lower than in the UK, so they don't charge as much for the operation. It was £3,000 cheaper to go to Belgium, so it was one of the main factors, but it wasn't the only one. The other one was that the surgeons in Belgium have been performing this kind of surgery for much longer, so they have a lot more experience. They had a lot more different bands, like the actual band itself, available. It just sorry, it seemed just like it was more suited to me, and I thought, taking the plane for taking the plane, it doesn't matter whether there's an extra half hour on the journey, it will not make a difference whatsoever. So I decided to go with this company. I met the first time I went, I met with a nurse who has been my nurse, who followed me since, and this woman is godsend. She got me through all the bad moments and all the good moments of having a band, and she is absolutely amazing. So I met with her and I was really stressed out, and she kept it real, and that's what I like about her, is that whenever I don't do well, and because I'm not making enough effort, she will say it to me. When I do well, she will say it to me. She won't tell me off unless there is a reason to tell me off, and usually I know myself I've not done good, so I never get offended with that. I do like people to keep it straight with me, basically. So and she's always been like that. She really cares about her patients, and this is so important. That's how she made me feel at the first appointment. So I was explaining the whole process. I was shown an actual band. I will include a picture now in case you don't know what a band looks like. I will explain the process quickly for you. I have my notes there. I'm just going to put them down for a minute. Basically, if you imagine your stomach is like a balloon, and you put a band up like 2/3 up on the balloon, and it squeezes, so you will end up having a pouch at the top and a bigger pouch at the bottom. And so the band acts like that. So basically when the food enters the top pouch of my band, when this is full, I feel full, and then gradually it will go in the lower pouch and empty the top pouch, and then I will feel hungry again. This band has a cable, like a tube, going down to a pot, which is like it's like a plastic thing, like a plastic circle with a part you can inject into. It's stitched under my skin on my stomach. And the way it works is that you can adjust the band by injecting saline solution or like sucking out the solution, and it's like a rubber ring. So if you imagine this is the band, so it goes around the stomach, and inside you have loads of little pockets that can fill with fluids. So you control the size of the hole that the food passes through by making it smaller or bigger. The smaller the hole is, the longer it will take for the food to go down, and the like least food technically you need to eat. In my head there is a right adjustment to the band, but I will come to that later on. But this is how it works. There's a picture of it in case you're wondering what it looks like. So before having the operation, I needed to go on a pre-operation diet. The reason for this diet is that the band operation in most cases is done by keyhole surgery. So they do, in my case I had 5 incisions. Sometimes they do 4, I know, and it must depend on the person. I was told first I would have between 3 and 6 incisions. I think I ended up with 5. And because your liver, if you imagine there's your stomach, and your liver, when it's bigger, covers part of your stomach, it's not easy to access this. So you need to be on a diet that shrinks the liver. So then it's easier for them, for the operation, to do it. So it's more straightforward, there's less risks of your liver getting damaged during the operation, etc, etc. So this is what I had to eat. So I started my pre-operation diet on the 8th of February 2010, and my operation was on the 22nd. So that's 3 weeks. So that was the diet I had to do for 3 weeks before my operation. For breakfast I was allowed 1 to 2 eggs or a slim fast milkshake, and the egg had to have no fat, so it was just cooked with no fat whatsoever. For lunch I was allowed a clear soup, which was made of water and 1 to 2 OXO cubes, and for dinner 1 piece of grilled or steamed fish, like white fish, chicken or corn, and I had to add to this 5 vegetables or fruit during the day. So I was allowed to switch around the meals, but basically that was what the meal was about. So there was absolutely no fat, actually. No fats, no carbs, some vegetables and some protein. It did work well. I was told my liver was very well shrunk and it was very nice and all that. So brilliant, I had a nice liver when I had my surgery. Then this is exactly what happened from the moment I left my house to go to get my operation. So we were living in Belfast, and there was no flights direct from Belfast to Brussels, so we had to take a bus first to go from Belfast to Dublin. So we ended up leaving the house at 1:30 AM and didn't make it to Brussels until 9:15 AM. It was a long trip, and the way it works is that whenever you pay for your operation, it also includes your hotel stay for you and a partner, all your transport. So whenever we got to the airport, we met with a man that was called Ignace or something, doesn't matter his name, but he was he's a taxi driver, but he works with the company as well. And he also helps with bringing you to the hotel, getting the hotel sorted, getting you to check in the hospital. He was a very, very helpful man. He knows what he's doing very well, and he did everything for us out of the hospital time. So we met with him and he brought us to the hotel, and he told me that there would be 2 other girls coming from England that would be there as well, and that the next day he would bring the 3 of us to have surgery. And then there is a man called Chris that came over, and he's the patient care manager in Belgium. So he came over, went over all the paperwork, got me to sign my contract, all my operation stuff, and explained to me the side effects, explained to me what was going to happen the next day and all that. I found out then, I thought, I was convinced I would be able to speak French there, and I found out I was in the Flemish part of Belgium, so there was not much French. It was mostly, it's very similar to Dutch. It's not exactly the same, but it would be the closest language would be Dutch. And I was convinced my last meal would have to be one of these like broth and stuff, so I had brought with me, we knew we would have a kettle, I had brought my OXO cubes with me for my last meal. And Chris just said, do you know what, go and have a McDonald's or something. So we just went to get a McDonald's, and this is the picture of the last meal ever I got of my non-banded life. So the next day was the operation day. So the taxi, I call him the taxi driver just to make it easier, came to pick us up at 6:30. That's when I met with the 2 other girls that were there for an operation. They were both getting a band as well. And we arrived at the hospital at 7, and we checked in. They gave us our bracelet, they showed us our room. So the 2 English girls were together in a room, and I was in a room with a lady from Belgium who was getting a gastric sleeve. She was really nice. She probably was in her 50s. Actually, I'm still friend on Facebook with her, and she was lovely. We did have to try and manage between her little bit of English and my little bit of English and some French thrown in. It was a mix of languages, but it was lovely to have her. Even if we couldn't communicate much, it was nice actually to have somebody to get. I was a bit freaking out when I thought, I'm gonna be in a room with a stranger, and to be honest, that woman really got me through this. She was an amazing support mentally in a way. So then came the lovely time of trying to get blood out of me. My veins are terrible to get blood out of, and they had to get a blood sample out to get a blood test done, and they also had to put cannula in for my surgery, for the IV to go into. And we'll include a picture of all the various places I had to be bandaged up after, and later on in the video I will show you a picture of what my arms looked like 10 days after this happened, bruise wise. It was ridiculous. My arms were black. Once this was all done, we were told that we could just wait around, and they would call us in whenever it was time to go down to the theatre. And they were not sure, out of there was 4 of us going for surgery that day, they were not sure who would be going first. So I went in, the lady who was getting the sleeve went in first because the operation could be longer. And then I was in the room with the 2 English girls, and we were chatting and trying to pass the time and not freak out too much. And they came in the room and they told me I was the next one to go, so I didn't have to wait too long, which I'm glad about. If I had been last, I would have really stressed a lot about it. They brought me into a room which I think it was some kind of recovery room, as well as a room you go into before an operation, because there were some people sleeping. I'm guessing they just had surgery and they were already put to sleep. I'm not entirely sure. There was a lot of snoring going around me. I only remember some. I remember some like what I heard and what I could smell, and the feeling. I started to get really cold in that room, and they put some the compression socks they had would not fit me. My calves were too big, and I still have that issue. My calves are much bigger than my ankles, and they couldn't compress my legs everywhere. Basically, they got something that fit in my calves, it would not compress the lower part of my leg, so they ended up using compression bandages, so then they could tighten them everywhere they needed to. And then they asked me to go and walk over. They put the IV in, I think, and they asked me to walk over to the theatre. And I remember when I saw the operation table, I thought, this looks like a gingerbread man. It literally had the shape of a gingerbread man with articulated legs and arms. And I remember thinking, how on hell am I going to fit on this table? It was so narrow. I thought, there's no way they're going to be able to operate on me without me falling off this thing. And then I understood, they strap you on it. So I just got a bit surprised. I remember they strapped my arms down, like out, and then they strapped my legs in. I thought, okay, this is a bit freaking me out. And I remember it was so cold in this place. and I could see myself. You know the big lamp they have above you when you have an operation? I remember I could see my reflection with an oxygen mask and strapped in, and I was thinking, oh my god, why am I doing this? But there was like a surgeon assistant who was there, and he realized I was stressed out, and he said to me, are you scared? And I said yes, and he said to me, would some music relax you? And I said yes please. And he started to put the Little Mermaid on, and I thought, thank you God for this. This man put like exactly the kind of music I needed to just focus on something. And then the anesthetist, this was a woman, and she looked, I remember, I could only remember her glasses because she had a mask on and a hat, and I remember she had really nice glasses, and she had a necklace on, which I don't know why, that's why I remember from her. And she said to me, I'm going to inject you now with the anesthetic, and it's going to burn in your arm. And I remember it was like agony. It lasted literally 2 seconds, and then I was out of it. Well, I'm assuming, because the next thing I remember was being in the, when I woke up in the recovery room. But I woke up, and I remember kept going like in and out of sleep constantly. The main feeling I had was my throat was really sore, and it felt like really raw, and I remember my nose was like really itchy, so I kept going like that, and there was some dried blood, so I'm guessing I must have had a nosebleed or something whenever I had the operation. But then about 12, so I went in the operation. My operation was at 10, and at 12 I was back in my room. So I think the operation lasted about 45 minutes or something like that, and just the time it took for me to wake up. James didn't think the operation would be so quick, so he wasn't back yet, but eventually came back. That afternoon, basically, I spent the afternoon throwing up. The anesthetic, now it's not because of the balm that I threw up. I found that out later on when I had other surgeries. The anesthetic itself makes me throw up, and it's the same for James and Eoghan. And basically once we've thrown up enough to get all the thing out of our system, then it's fine. But so I did throw up a lot, which wasn't nice. Whenever I just had surgery on my stomach, it really wasn't nice. And I kept wanting to walk. I felt like my legs were so heavy, and I just wanted to walk to loosen them up. And I remember the surgeon was saying to me, like, if you can walk and you feel like you can do it, get on your feet and get your blood flowing. That's the best thing you can do. Just make sure you don't go on your own, and they will be fine. Make sure you go slowly when you get up, because I had 5 scars across my belly. So he was all for it. He came to see me twice in the afternoon to check on me and make sure I was okay, which I thought was really nice. And but I remember the other girls, the 2 English girls in the other room, was looking at me thinking, you're insane, get in your bed, rest. I just felt like this is what I needed to do. And I think whenever you go to do stuff like that, you kind of go back to your animal instinct, and I just felt like this is what I had to do. That night, James went back to the hotel, and I slept at the hospital. And I remember during the night I was on and off waking up. I started to have a lot of, they did warn me about gas pain, and by that I mean whenever they do keyhole surgery, they basically inflate your belly. So on the pictures I will show you after, you will see my belly is very swollen. It's simply because it was inflated, and the problem is that all that gas they put in your belly, it seems to go up. The way I was feeling it was in my shoulders and in my ribs. It was agony. It's actually the first 3 days I suffered from the gas pain more than I suffered from the actual scars in my stomach. It was just really bad, like really bad. So that was really annoyed me during the night. Then the next day at 6 AM they came in and they removed my IV, and they told me I would need to go and get barium x-ray. So barium is a liquid that shows up on x-rays. So the way they did it is that I had to drink, I had a shot, like a shot cup basically if you want, of barium. It tastes absolutely disgusting, but the surgeon was taking pictures by x-ray of different intervals while I was drinking it, just to make sure that my band was well positioned and that liquid could go through it, just to make sure he was not sending me off with a stomach that either super swollen and nothing can get through, not even fluids, or just making sure basically everything looked normal, and it did. So then after that they asked me if I wanted to drink some orange juice. I was meant to stay on a liquid diet. I think it was for 3 weeks. It could have been a month after that, where I was only allowed liquids. Might have been 3 weeks, I can't remember. I think it was 3 weeks of it might have been 3 weeks of liquid food, then 3 weeks of mushy food, and then back to normal. It must have, I'm not entirely sure about that, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was at least 3 weeks for sure. So they gave me some orange juice, and it was fine at first, and then we got picked up at 10 AM. The taxi driver came to pick the 3 of us up, and we had to stop on the way. We had to stop to a pharmacy where we were collecting like all our pain medication and some Clexane injections, you know, it's like blood thinners after a surgery to avoid like blood clots and stuff like that. And I remember this trip in the car. It was about an hour long, an hour drive in total, with a stop in the pharmacy. I've never felt so sick in my life, and I regretted that orange juice so badly. It was horrible. So basically I threw up the whole way. They knew it was going to happen because they given us like loads of sick bags and everything. But basically it was a lovely trip with the 3 of us throwing up constantly. And I remember whenever I arrived at the hotel and James was there to greet me, and he was thinking, are you okay? And in the lift I was like, I couldn't stop throwing up. It was lovely. I did tell you I would keep it real. Then the rest of the day I basically continued to sleep on and off, and the gas pain was still really bad. The next day that was the day we were going home, but we didn't have a plane until 6 o'clock that night, so I decided I would rest all day and do nothing. So I basically laid in bed all day. I think I had a shower at some point. The good thing that they gave me dressings that were waterproof, so I was still able to have a shower. And yeah, it was really nice to get a shower finally. Then we went home. Basically our flight was delayed. The trip home was very long. We had to get the taxi to the airport, then go to Dublin, then get a bus, and then get a taxi back home. So we left at 6 PM from Brussels, and we didn't make it home until 2 AM the next day. It was a very long, very long journey, but we made it eventually. And then after that, for about a week, basically after the operation, the shoulder pain because of the gas was there, and then after that the scar, especially the one where the part is under the skin, was starting to bother me a little bit and feel itchy, you know, like when they are healing. But it wasn't, honestly, scar wise it wasn't too bad. The one with the part took the longest to heal, and even now sometimes 6 years later it does flare up sometimes and cause me some issues, but it's normal. So as a little summary, in the first month from the moment I started the pre-op diet, so that was 3 weeks before the operation and then 1 week, so 1 week post-op, in total I had lost 10 kilos. A lot of that I had lost actually during the pre-op diet, which does make you shed a few kilos. I'm going to include now a picture. If you are a bit squeamish, just skip ahead. It's not disgusting, it's just to give the reality of what scars look like. So there will be a picture of the scars 10 days post-op, and then a comparison of 10 days post-op and 1 month post-op, and also a picture of the bruises at 10 days post-op. As you can see, it was absolutely lovely. So this is it for now, part 1 of the bound episodes. I will film another one, maybe 2. I'm thinking another one might be enough, but what would help me is if you have any questions that you would like me to answer in the next bound video, please post them below. Message me, like private message me if you don't want people to know. I know for a lot of topics there are people who send me private message because they don't want to be identified, or they don't want people to read what they are writing, and that's absolutely fine. I completely respect that, especially for topics like that, when you might not want the world to know that you are planning to do this, or you want to know more about this. That's fine. So you can just reach out to me on any kind of social media or by private message or whatever way you want to, and I will do my best to include all the answers in the next video. I'm not entirely sure when it will be. It won't be too long before I make it because I want to keep it, you know, kind of close together. Yeah, I hope it had enough information if that's what you were after, and if not, please ask. I wish I was able at the time I did this to ask questions to somebody who lives with the band, like really openly. So I hope you like this video, and I will see you next week for another video. In the meantime, if you want to check out my daily vlogs, they are every day at 5 p.m. on my channel, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please press the red button down there to let you know when I have new videos up. Bye!